What's going on, everybody? This is Afro Think Tank, and today we're going to talk about politics. We're going to talk about politics. We're going to talk about where I stand, and I'm going to talk about what I believe, what I truly believe, and this is basically my opinion, my thought process on, what I think would happen if black people were to actually unite in America. I'm talking about the African American were to unite in America, right, as their own individual political bloc, right, and we start to control our own agenda as black people. Because I don't think a lot of black people who are politically aware or who are now trying to become politically aware really understand what would truly happen if black people were to actually unite under a single party as a group of people. I don't think people can really truly appreciate how something like that could completely change the dynamic of the entire world. But just because we don't think about it doesn't mean that they don't think about it. Doesn't mean that the Europeans are not thinking about it. Doesn't mean that the Indian and Asians and the Latinos also are not thinking about it. Like the strategists are not somewhere along the line within their communities that the intellectuals and the political strategists amongst them are not thinking about it. That there are not black politicians who are not thinking about it. Like there are people thinking about this scenario and the consequences it would happen, right? And I think about this, and keep in mind, certain groups of people in this country have went through great lengths to de-educate us as a group of people. They went through great lengths to make us as ignorant as humanly possible. They went through great lengths to have us forget all of our own indigenous and original knowledge. And they go through great lengths to stop us from participating equally in the political process. And they go through great lengths to make it difficult for us to participate in the economic process, right? Now, they make these things difficult for us specifically on purpose. And their ultimate plan encompasses all other groups to help them in this mission to keep us oppressed for a certain reason, right? Now, there's a reason why all the other groups of, for argument's sake, races of people are allowed to elevate, or participate in their white supremacist system. The thing that they use to stay in charge as a group of people is the reason why they allow all the other groups to participate, but they fear certain groups participating in that in mass numbers, right? They have to keep us down for a reason, right? Now we're talking about big picture. Now, if you're a European, right? Let's just talk about nature. If you're a European, and because of the nature of your society, you have been fighting your fellow brother and sister. Y'all been fighting. Your culture is not to trust; it's to fight. Y'all communal culture is not the same like other groups, right? And you're fought. If you fight a lot, because you're spending a lot of time fighting, you don't develop certain disciplines, right? You don't have enough peace, and stability to do certain things. That's why if you look at Europe, they don't have a lot of ancient structures, megalithic structures, because they never really had the time to do it because they've been fighting, right? Africans, on the other hand, we have achieved peace and stability in the past, so we've had the time to develop technologies, right? And develop great civilizations and great architecture, right? We've had time to develop sciences and different political systems, to govern individuals. It's just what it is, right? So imagine, being a European who excel in combat, right? Because if you're always fighting them and you're always looking for a way to win, as human beings, we always try to improve on our technology. Just so happens that Europeans, right, and Northern Asians, since they fight all the time, the technology that they use mostly, that they've been improving on, is death machines, how to kill, how to destroy, destruction, right? They excel in that, and so it at some point that got to the point to where they hit a singularity, and which was the cannon and the gun, and after that, they went on their journeys of death and destruction around the world, right? The balance tipped in their favor, right? But then while they were doing all this, they were run into civilization, to people who which, they saw was clearly superior to them in society. They saw the fine art, and we're talking about from their perspective. They see all of this magnificent, civilization, these people who are not only physically stronger than them, whose body frames are more adapted to the planet, who don't need attachments to survive, who run faster, who's stronger, who's quicker, sings, have amazing voices, like all these amazing things that fairy tales are made after. That if I was back in those days, I would make stories of giants and cities like Atlantis and various different types of humans who are this, and I would make things up. If I ran into these people, if I was an explorer and I brought it back to my people, I'll talk about these fantastic people. I think honestly that Southeast Asia and Africa are the foundation of all European fantasies and stories. To be honest, it all makes sense if you think about it, right? So because of that, and the nature of them is to take and destroy, they took and destroyed. And they knew that we inherently by nature have the capability of doing all these things. That's why all of their museums are filled with our stuff, filled with our accomplishments. Why they tell us we ain't shit, they literally stole all our shit, put it in their museums, and display that shit to the world. Right? They display it to the world. And that's just the stuff they want to show us. The stuff downstairs is the good stuff that only the privileged amongst them gets to see. The truth. Right? But they make it their point for us not to know the truth. Because what happens if you teach somebody that they're great, that they're able to do certain things, that their ancestors achieved these things, that would create a person who believes that they also can do those things. That will create a person who would attempt to do those things because they would have been inspired by their ancestors. They would have been inspired by the accomplishment of their people. They would have a high sense of pride. And it's hard to get a person like that to do what you want them to do. It's hard to get a person like that to feel inferior than you. It's hard to get a person like that to act like a slave or to cooperate with you, because that person's pride level and his information about himself and his people will not allow him to be able to put himself in that situation. And then it will be harder for you to maintain control over that person. Right? And the thing about Europeans is the people in Europe kept their people ignorant. They kept their people illiterate. So that way they can use religion to control them. They didn't know what was in those Bibles. They didn't know what was in those scrolls. They couldn't read anything. When the church was in control, the clergy, these are the people that could read, who had access to information. Right? The people didn't have access to information. They just had to take the people with the access to information word for it. That's why the people who got the information are the ones that got the money to steal the information, the books, the scrolls, the history, the museums, the knowledge. The thing that Africans was given to Europeans away for free for eons, these particular Europeans, they said they had to steal it. They got greedy, like they always do. Everything belongs in them. They couldn't just accept what it is that they were being given and just enjoy and do that. No, they had to take it. Right? So the Europeans knew in their playbook that in order to defeat something that was superior to them in every way, as far as they're concerned, they had to use tricks. They had to make us believe we were who we were, that we had the capability of doing any of the things that we did, even though that's the reason why they took us in the first place, because they couldn't build these societies. They couldn't build these countries, these great empires by themselves. They needed us to do it for them. They needed us to produce the labor, the power, the energy, the intellect to build these great cities, to build these great countries that they show off, that they're so proud of. They needed us to do it. They've always needed someone else to do this for them because they can't do it themselves. The only thing they can do is kill, destroy, make war, trick, play games, steal. That's what they're good at. So they leverage what they're good at and they make everybody else build their society. So the African American, which are combinations of every group of African in Africa, every group representative of every kingdom, the ones that was fighting each other, the ones that allowed themselves to be tricked into falling into a system which they knew nothing about. The transatlantic slave trade. Selling their people into something they knew nothing about. Had no idea. But they did it. Because it was part of the culture to do such things. Everybody was doing it back then. But it was more like an employee-employer type of thing slavery was. Comparable to an American employment system pre the Industrial Revolution. Just think about how America used, how employees and the relationship between the employer and the employee used to be before employees started fighting back, creating unions and creating fair and safe job environments. It was practically slavery. They were getting beat, they were getting whipped, they were getting punished, they was getting treated the same way as a slave. Back then, everybody, white, black, everybody. Capitalism. Before regulation. Now imagine if black people, right, within this system that these same Europeans have worked so hard to keep us away from the political system, to keep us distracted and divided. Imagine what would happen if we actually got together and created a political party ourselves and started demanding, things for our people as a block of people, right? Imagine that. Let me tell you what I believe would happen. You see, African Americans are a unique group of people, unlike all the other group of people on the planet. We have a particular leverage because of our culture. We are communal. We're very, very much communal, meaning it's natural for us to actually do something like this in the first place. But in order for us not to do it, you have to make sure that we don't practice our own culture. You have to give us something else to practice, a division of culture. Because African Americans uniquely, if we were to get together, and because of the type of people we are and how we are morally, the best of us, the things that we would want for our own people, the things that we were asking for, because we're not really greedy. We're not asking to take over. We're not asking to be put in positions of power so we can subjugate other people. What we are asking for is just peace and equality and the ability to be left alone and the ability to have an environment which is safe for our children. The demands that African Americans want, the things that we want, it's fair and balanced, and everybody else will also want those things and do want those things for their own people. The ones that have good intentions for their people. And African Americans are uniquely part of the one group of people that white people, European, have not almost totally subjugated completely and still hold overwhelming dominance over. Let me explain. Now, the Native Americans, who are the original inhabitants of this Western Hemisphere, right? I'm talking about from Peru all the way to Canada. They have been defeated to the point to where they don't have the numbers to actually make a comeback and take back their continent. They can't take back North America. They've been defeated to the point where they just don't have the numbers. It's just not possible for Native Americans to wield enough power to take back what was stolen from them. They just don't have the numbers, right? They're Latinos, which is a hybrid version of them mixed with the rest of the world, right? They're not even on that type of tip. Not all of them. Not enough of them. They don't even want to identify with their indigenous. They're way far back in the line of who or understanding who they are. They're not even close to where we are. They're still trying to be something else, right? Indians, they just got given back their country. China, they just got given back their country. And outside of Africans, the Indians and the Chinese are the only other two groups who have enough oomph, enough gumption to make problems for the European, right? But uniquely, because both those groups have problems that hinder them from even doing that, right? They got problems within their own culture that prevents them from having a community that's tight enough to actually do something like that. But Africans uniquely, we have the type of culture that makes us be able to do that if we all just start to concentrate on ourselves as culture. We do it naturally. Let me give you some examples right now. There are wars going on in the Asian side of on the planet, right? There are wars going on right there. And in America, the Asian community, they're not very loud about those wars. You know, there are people talking about it, but they're not very loud about those wars. And not all of them are together on what should happen. They're very much divided, right? And they argue with each other over there. So outside of the Asian world, they're not united away from their home together as a people, right? Spanish people, right? Latinos in America. You don't hear, even though there's some of them doing it, you don't hear them talking about how horrible and dangerous Central and South America is, and how they need to fix their communities, and how they need to go back and build up their countries, and how the Europe and America, the place that they live, that they're enjoying right now, is the very same country that's destroying their homeland. You don't hear them fighting back and connecting. Well, once they get over here, that's it. They create their own group, right? And it's like sometimes they're even on the side of, you know, the people who are actually messing up their countries. So you don't hear them culturally fighting back like that as a group of people. They come here and they accept American exceptionalism over their own country. The loyalty is to America. They give it up, right? A lot of Asians do the same. They come here, they give it up. They're American. They give up their country. They're India, Asia, Europeans. Right now, Europe, them guys are fighting right now. They always fight. Europeans have been going to war with each other forever, right? But they still find time between that war in agreements with each other while at war that we still suck and they can still be racist and discriminate against us, right? It's weird, right? But Europeans over here, European Americans over here, are also divided about whose side they are over there. They're not about, hey, let's kumbaya, let's us Europeans, let's all be peaceful, and we should all have a, you know, as a community, we need to, you know, fix our community, and we got to end this European on European violence. We got to end this white on white violence. We got to have peace in the European world. You don't hear them talking like that. But you hear F Russia or F Ukraine. F Russia or F Ukraine. Or if there are other couple European wars that's happening over there in the Baltics, that's happening over there that you don't hear about, F this one or F that one. Something must stand, F that must stand, F this must stand. Right? And F, you know, and it's total, and they wish that the other side would just be either destroyed, defeated, whatever. You don't hear there's no kumbaya. But when it comes to black folks, right, whether we are African Americans who came over here during the transatlantic slave trade, or Africans who have been immigrated from Africa, anytime we see something bad in Africa, the majority of the sentiment is, hey man, we need to end these wars. We're brothers, we're family, we're community, we're the same people. We got to stop warring. We got to stop letting these Europeans pit us against each other. We got to get these puppets out of here because they're causing people to fight. We always talk about how it's communities fighting other communities, and we try to hold ourselves together as a community. We naturally do that no matter what. Now, yeah, we got our detractors, our African Americans who don't care about Africa. We got our people in each country who don't care about other countries. We got those people, yeah, but they're not the majority. The majority and the normal sentiment of black people is that anytime we see Africans fighting other Africans, whether it's on a country scale, Africans having a war with each other, or whether it's on a communal scale, black on black crime, we hold each other accountable, and we just don't like to see black people fighting each other. And that's just natural, and we talk about it. And if we had the power to stop it, we would. And we know the reason why these things are going on is because of the conditions that we have put in. We understand that because we're always been politically involved because we have no choice, right? Because we're always being attacked one way or another. So imagine if we had our own political party here that African Americans say, you know what? You know, since neither the Democrats or the Republicans want to help us or want to really do anything to benefit our communities, we're not going to give neither one of these people our vote. We're gonna put up our own candidates. We're gonna solicit black businesses to start funding our candidates in the local communities, so that we can compete in these local elections, so we can take over these local municipalities, so that the school board is filled with African Americans who want to see African Americans in their communities get better education, who would not transfer the taxes from that community to a more affluent white community so they can be taking the benefit of the African American community's tax systems. If we start making it cool to be into politics the same way Europeans make it cool for their people to be in politics, and get our children interested, involved in being politicians, being tacticians at political war, making that a goal for our children, because we don't make that a goal for our children. We make the goal we make for our children is to do something easy like play a sport and dominate, so that we can get millions of dollars and get out of the system that way. Take the easy route because we got the talent, right? And so instead of letting us use the other thing that we can excel in, which is our ability to be tacticians when we want to be intelligent political figures when we want to be, to use our intellect when we want to be, our combative skills there, because we're geniuses, to use our brain when we want to be, right? So we start actually doing that, and we start actually going and actually buying black, and actually start doing the things we used to do, that our grandparents did back when they were forced to post-segregation, pre-segregation, right? When we ain't had no choice, when we was minding our businesses and building our own personal economies. And guess what would happen? We will be giving our African brothers and sisters an institution that they can invest in and bring that African money in there. And now we will be supporting each other on a larger scale. Then we connected to some of these African economies that we got going on over there in Africa that's developing. Because if we started to politically take over every place we would take over. We could take over Chicago politically, and then we can actually do something about it and fix the issues that we complain about. And when I say take over, I'm talking about taking over both the Democrat and the Republican side of our local politics. Create our own, what we call Democrat or Republicans, but have our own name. We can be conservative, liberal, and have our own black, African, liberal, conservative ideologies that's not connected to or that don't identify with the white version of these political groups, so that we don't have to deal with the shit that they want, because there's a lot of things that they want within their groups that don't ride with us, right? So we just trim out all of that, and we just do the stuff that we like, so we can argue amongst ourselves of which direction we can go, but at least we be the ones in power. We can do that. We can have sub parties within an individual party, and we can fight amongst ourselves about which way we should go politically in our own neighborhoods, but at least it'd be us controlling it. We could control our own education system. It'd be us controlling it, at least from both sides. Insulating ourselves from outside influences that want to diminish us or take away our shit. But let me tell you what's going to happen, though. But because the nature of African people and how we work, the things that we want, all we want is good education for our children. Despite what people say about us, African Americans, we value education. And if we could and we had the ability to take the money that we generate within our communities to build our schools, we would do it. We would do it. Every one of our schools would be top notch. Have top notch computers and technology to keep our kids inspired and interested in education. If we had our people picking the curriculum, we would have better curriculums within our community. And we don't play games when it comes to our education when we're serious about it. We would make it fair, and we would do things like free school lunch. We would make sure that our children can eat, because we understand what it's like to not have. Right? We would keep our schools and our communities policed if we actually controlled and had the power. If we actually had communities that had police officers that was from our communities, and they had unions that were controlled by our communities. So we don't have unions that strong arm our black police officers and law enforcement officers to do what it is the greater union want them to do, which is attached to the white power structure outside of the business power structure. That's why our black cops can't do anything, because they're attached to unions that if they tried to do something, they would be blackballed. They wouldn't have the power. They'll be fired. They wouldn't be supported. That's why it's hard to be a black law enforcement officer in this country because they're attached to unions that work right along with the federal and local governments to subjugate and keep the white power structure in its place. But if we controlled our own unions, created our own law enforcement areas, and we controlled and policed our own communities, we would do it the way it was supposed to be done. That's what we would actually do if we was really in charge. As long as we eliminate the corruption within us, because we know the problem is corruption is everywhere, right? People throw money, and money will ruin somebody. But despite those obvious issues we would have, at least we would be the ones in control of it. And you know what will happen? Other people would see that our policies are popular, and they would want to have a part of it. So all of a sudden, you'll have this massive block of people with policies that are not only just popular with African Americans, but all of a sudden, the Latino community, like, you know what? I like those policies too, because those policies, that African American bloc, those policies that they advocate for, we also want those in our communities. We want the same thing they want. And all of a sudden, we'll have another political ally, the Latino community. Then they'll start coming over to us, and you know how big they are. And then guess what else? Guess who else will start coming over to us? Those poor white folk. The poor white folks, like, you know what? A lot of the things they advocate for, we like that too. That we want, those are the things we want for our communities. And they seem to be strong enough to be able to do it. And their communities look like it's working for them. We want to be a part of that. Then they'll start supporting us. Then all of a sudden, the party that was just started by a bunch of black folks that just wanted to see good things for black folks will start to be the party of the people. Right? Because, black people, all the policies that benefit African Americans also benefit other people from other communities who have been marginalized for one reason or another. It will be an unstoppable force that the powers that be, that need us to be divided and fighting each other, they have to spend money to make sure it doesn't happen. The last thing they want is for people to be galvanizing around African Americans over policy. We would totally take over. Our politicians would be the most popular. Then when they run for national offices, they would have support and they would win. And then guess who would have the keys to the United States of America then? We would, because America's for sale. That's the great thing about America. Anybody can own and control America if they're unified and organized. Anybody can. No single group can have any inherent control over America. And you see those European Americans who care about those type of things, who want to maintain white superiority, white power, to control the keys to the most powerful nation ever created. They're doing everything they can to make sure the one group of people that got the institution, the power, the money, the know-how, and they also have a continent of like individuals that can also back them if once that continent becomes online. Can you imagine? Can you imagine black people getting more involved in American politics, taking power in every location that we are popular in, controlling every state that we are the majority in, and then making real connections overseas with African countries that are now taking control of their power and having access to multiple economies to enrich our community here in America? After taking the political keys from the people that had it the longest, we will be unstoppable. And they know that. And they see it coming. That's why we need to stop capping for these Republicans that don't care about us. You don't see them out there campaigning for African Americans. You don't see them coming out there bringing up some old plan that Ice Cube made up. You don't see them rehashing that in the media. You don't see them reaching out into our community saying, hey, yeah, F the Democrats, come over here to us. You don't see them spending money in our communities trying to get us over there. You don't. And the liberals and the Democrats, you don't see them in our communities making any type of real promises, anything tangible. You don't see them. You don't see them doing. You don't see neither group actually acting like we matter, because neither group want us in charge. Because they both at the top get paid by the same corporations. They two teams playing in the same league that's owned by the same guys. And both of them, no matter what, they both agree, as long as one of them are in charge, that's all that matters. But they're going to fight amongst themselves as long as one of them in charge at the end of the day. And we got to take that in consideration. We can't spend our time, our energy, our money picking neither one of these parties, right, without strategically creating our own party, to gain political leverage in this country and on this planet ultimately. And they know that. And they're going to spend billions and billions and billions of dollars to have us fight and argue about being Democrats, about being Republicans, as long as we're fighting on behalf of them, spending our money on behalf of their parties, putting all our political passion and our energy, and as long as we're doing it for them, that still maintains and upholds white supremacy in their institutions that ultimately dominate us globally. But until we take real political power and create our own thing and have our own interests and grow it and support it while supporting businesses that will be forced to support us if they want us to support them in a communal setting, we're always going to be sitting here arguing, fighting over things that don't belong to us. We might as well fight the good fight over something that do belong to us. Anyway, that's all I got to say. This is Afro Think Tank. Learn something, teach something. I'm out.